My name is Mason, a 30-year-old software developer from Boston who never thought family drama would overshadow my wedding day. When I proposed to Elaine after 3 amazing years together, I was on top of the world. We immediately dove into planning our perfect autumn vineyard ceremony. Then my phone rang with my mother's concerns about our wedding date. Little did I know that call would expose decades of favoritism toward my sister Amanda and force me to make the hardest decision of my life. Before I dive into how my own mother tried to sabotage the happiest day of my life, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that like button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for how I turned the tables on my family's manipulation. Growing up in a middle-class suburb of Boston, I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. From our earliest memories, my sister Amanda was the golden child, who could do no wrong, while I was the afterthought, the extra, the one who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Our house in Massachusetts was comfortable with 4 bedrooms and a yard big enough for weekend barbecues. My dad, Robert, worked as an accountant, and my mom, Patricia, taught 2nd grade at the local elementary school. We weren't rich, but we were stable, at least financially. The Amanda favoritism started early. For her 5th birthday, my parents transformed our backyard into a princess wonderland, complete with a rented bouncy castle, professional face painters, and a custom cake that must have cost hundreds. 3 months later, my birthday celebration consisted of pizza and a store-bought cake with my mom, explaining they needed to budget after Amanda's big day. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. When Amanda made the junior varsity cheerleading squad in 9th grade, my parents took the entire family out to the most expensive restaurant in town. When I was selected for the state science competition after months of research and preparation, I got a quick good job and a pat on the back. The most blatant example came when we turned 16. Amanda received a brand new Honda Civic wrapped in a giant red bow in our driveway on her birthday morning. My parents beamed as she screamed with excitement. My 16th birthday gift, Dad, helped me look through used car listings and explained I'd need to pay for half of whatever we found. I worked evenings and weekends at a local grocery store for 6 months to save enough for my share of a 10-year-old Toyota with over 100,000 miles on it. Despite the obvious favoritism, I poured myself into academics. I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA and earned a substantial scholarship to MIT for computer science. My parents attended my graduation, of course, but spent most of the ceremony talking about how Amanda was being considered for homecoming queen next year. After college, I landed a great job at a software company in Boston and started building my own life away from the family dynamics that had shaped my childhood. I still visited for major holidays and called my parents every couple of weeks, but I kept an emotional distance that protected me from the pain of being second best. Then I met Elaine at a tech conference 3 years ago. She was presenting research on artificial intelligence applications in healthcare, and her brilliance immediately captivated me. With dark hair, bright eyes, and a laugh that made everyone around her smile, she was magnetic. I worked up the courage to talk to her during the networking reception, and we ended up chatting until the venue staff asked us to leave because they were closing. Our relationship developed naturally and joyfully. Elaine understood me in ways no one ever had before. She listened when I talked about my family dynamics, never dismissing my feelings or telling me I was overreacting. Her own family was warm and supportive, which was both wonderful and strange to experience. Her parents, Diane and Michael, welcomed me from our very first meeting, asking thoughtful questions about my work and interests. After 2 years together, I knew Elaine was the one. I planned a proposal at the summit of Mount Monadnock, our favorite hiking spot. The autumn leaves were at their peak color, creating a canopy of red and gold above us, as I knelt on one knee and asked her to be my wife. Her tears and emphatic yes made it the happiest moment of my life. The contrast between our families became even more apparent when we shared our engagement news. Elaine's parents immediately drove 2 hours to celebrate with us, bringing champagne and her grandmother's wedding veil, which Diane had carefully preserved for this moment. My mother's response on the phone was a tepid, "That's nice, honey. We should get together sometime to meet her family." This was particularly hurtful because my mother had thrown an impromptu party when Amanda got engaged to her college boyfriend 5 years earlier, despite the fact that they broke up only 4 months later. But I pushed the pain aside, focusing instead on the joy of planning a life with Elaine. I genuinely hoped that my wedding might finally be the occasion where I received equal treatment. Maybe, just maybe, my parents would show the same enthusiasm for my milestone that they had always shown for Amanda's achievements. This hope, as fragile as it was, gave me the courage to include them fully in our wedding plans from the beginning. In retrospect, I should have known better. I should have protected my special day from the family dynamics that had defined my entire life. But hope is a powerful thing, and I wasn't ready to give up on the idea of having the supportive parents I had always wanted. Elaine and I decided on an autumn wedding at Oak Ridge Vineyard, a stunning venue about an hour outside Boston. The location offered panoramic views of rolling hills covered with grapevines, all of which would be dressed in vibrant red and gold foliage by mid-October. We toured the property on a crisp November day more than a year before our intended wedding date, and immediately knew it was perfect. "This is exactly what I pictured," Elaine whispered, as we stood on the stone patio overlooking the vineyard. The event coordinator showed us photos of previous autumn weddings with fairy lights strung between wooden posts and long tables set for dinner among the vines. We put down a deposit that day, securing October 15th of the following year. It wasn't just a random date we picked out of convenience. October 15th was significant to us because it marked the anniversary of our first real date when I took Elaine to a small Italian restaurant and we talked until the restaurant closed. The restaurant owner had actually dimmed the lights to hint that it was time to leave, but he was smiling as he did it, clearly charmed by our obvious connection. Back at home, we created a shared document to start organizing our ideas. Elaine had always dreamed of a wedding that was elegant, but not stuffy, with personal touches that reflected our relationship. I wanted something that felt authentic to us, not a cookie-cutter event that could have belonged to anyone. We decided on a color palette inspired by autumn deep burgundy and navy with accents of gold. We talked about having a small wedding party, just a few close friends on each side. I immediately knew I wanted my best friend Trevor as my best man. He had been my roommate in college and had stood by me through every up and down since. Creating the guest list was our first challenge. Elaine's family was large and close-knit, with countless cousins, aunts, and uncles who were actively involved in her life. My extended family was smaller, and I wasn't particularly close to many of them. We settled on approximately 150 guests, which felt intimate enough to be meaningful, but large enough to include everyone important to us. When I called my mother to share our exciting venue news and the official date, her response was characteristically underwhelming. "October can be so unpredictable with weather," she said, as if we hadn't considered basic seasonal patterns. "Are you sure you want to lock in a date so far in advance? It might be better to stay flexible." I was confused by her suggestion. "The venue books up more than a year in advance, Mom. Being flexible wasn't really an option if we wanted this place." "Well, I suppose you know best," she said in a tone that clearly conveyed she thought the opposite. "Your father and I will make it work, whatever date you choose." The way she emphasized whatever date struck me as odd, but I brushed it off as her usual lack of enthusiasm for my life events. A few weeks into planning, we hired Sophia as our wedding planner. With her portfolio of beautifully executed events and her calm, organized demeanor, she seemed like the perfect person to help us navigate the countless decisions ahead. From our first meeting, she understood our vision and added suggestions that enhanced rather than changed our ideas. Our next major discussion was about the budget. Elaine's parents generously offered to contribute $20,000 toward the wedding, a sum that left us speechless with gratitude. They presented the check over dinner at their home, along with a heartfelt card expressing their joy at welcoming me into their family. In contrast, when I broached the subject with my parents during a Sunday phone call, my father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We've been discussing this," he said. "We can give you $5,000 toward the wedding expenses." I thanked them, trying to hide my disappointment, not at the amount itself, but at the knowledge that they had contributed $15,000 to Amanda's college fund beyond what they had saved for me. My sister had chosen a private university while I attended a state school on scholarship, but the disparity in financial support had been clear. Elaine and I decided to cover the remaining costs ourselves. We had both been saving for years, and while it would deplete a significant portion of our funds, we agreed that creating the wedding day we envisioned was worth it. There was also something symbolic about financing our own celebration, a declaration of independence from family expectations and obligations. As our planning progressed, Sophia helped us secure vendors that matched our vision and budget. We found a caterer known for farm-to-table cuisine, a florist who specialized in seasonal arrangements, and a photographer whose portfolio showed an eye for capturing authentic moments rather than staged poses. Throughout this process, my mother remained strangely detached. When I texted her photos of potential centerpieces, she would respond hours or even days later with non-committal messages like, "niece," or "whatever you think is best." When Elaine tried to include her in a dress shopping excursion, she claimed she had a scheduling conflict but didn't offer an alternative date. The tension became more noticeable during a dinner at my parents' house 6 months before the wedding. As Elaine enthusiastically shared our plans for the ceremony, my mother repeatedly changed the subject to Amanda's recent promotion at work. My father remained largely silent, offering occasional nods but little genuine engagement with our wedding discussion. On the drive home, Elaine gently placed her hand on mine. "Is it always like this with them?" I nodded throat tight with familiar disappointment. "Always. Amanda is their priority. She always has been." "Their loss," Elaine said firmly, "because you are incredible, Mason, and our wedding will be beautiful whether they fully appreciate it or not." Her unwavering support strengthened my resolve to create a joyful wedding day, despite my family's lackluster enthusiasm. Little did I know that their passive disinterest would soon transform into active sabotage. On a rainy Sunday afternoon in April, about 6 months before our wedding, Amanda showed up unannounced at our apartment. Elaine and I had been enjoying a lazy day of movies and takeout still in our pajamas at 2 in the afternoon when the doorbell rang. Amanda stood in the hallway, designer handbag over her arm, and perfect makeup despite the rain practically bouncing with excitement. At 32, my sister had maintained her queen bee personality from high school, working now as a marketing executive for a luxury brand. "I have news," she announced, brushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. She air-kissed Elaine in greeting before settling herself on our couch and fixing us with an expectant smile. Despite our complicated history, I was genuinely happy to see my sister. Whatever issues existed between us, they stemmed largely from our parents' treatment, rather than direct conflict between Amanda and me. "What's your news?" I asked, offering her a glass of wine, which she accepted with a nod. "I met someone," she said, eyes bright with excitement. "His name is Kyle, and he's a doctor. A cardiologist, actually. We've been dating for 3 months, and it's getting serious." "That's great, Amanda," I said sincerely. "You'll have to bring him around sometime so we can meet him." "Absolutely," she agreed. "Maybe we could do dinner next weekend. I want my amazing little brother and his fiancée to approve." She winked at me playfully, and for a moment, I felt the simple warmth of sibling affection, uncomplicated by our parents' favoritism. The following weekend, we all gathered at my parents' house for dinner. Kyle seemed nice enough, if somewhat reserved. He was tall, with neatly trimmed dark hair, and the confident manner of someone accustomed to being respected. My parents fawned over him from the moment he arrived, my mother repeatedly mentioning how impressive his career was, and my father engaging him in lengthy discussions about investment strategies. Throughout the evening, Amanda dominated the conversation with stories about how she and Kyle met at a charity gala, their romantic weekend getaways, and how they had so much in common. Occasionally, she would drop hints about big news coming soon, with meaningful glances at Kyle, who would smile politely but say nothing. My parents hung on every word of Amanda's stories, asking endless questions about Kyle's practice and family background. When Elaine attempted to join the conversation with a question about Kyle's interest in travel, my mother quickly redirected the discussion back to Amanda's recent work achievements. As we drove home that night, Elaine squeezed my hand. "They really make it obvious, don't they?" I sighed. "I'm used to it. At least the food was good." 2 weeks later, I received a call from my mother, her voice trembling with excitement. "Amanda has the most wonderful news. Kyle proposed last night. They're engaged." I felt a genuine spike of happiness for my sister, despite the quick progression of their relationship. "That's fantastic, Mom. Tell her congratulations from me." "We're having a celebration dinner this Saturday," she continued. "You and Elaine will come, of course. I've already ordered Amanda's favorite cake from that bakery in Cambridge, and we're opening the good champagne your father's been saving." I couldn't help but compare this reaction to the lukewarm response my own engagement had received. There had been no special dinner, no saved champagne, no excited phone calls to extended family. But I pushed the hurt aside, determining to be the bigger person. The engagement celebration was elaborate, with my parents' house decorated with flowers and congratulations banners. Extended family members whom I hadn't seen in years were present, all gushing over Amanda's sizable diamond ring and eager to hear every detail of Kyle's proposal. During dinner, Amanda stood to make an announcement, champagne flute in hand. "We've set a date," she declared. "October 8th at Lakeside Manor." I nearly choked on my drink. October 8th was exactly 1 week before our wedding date. I glanced at Elaine, whose expression remained carefully neutral, despite the obvious significance of the date. Soon I managed to say, calculating that it was barely 5 months away. Amanda nodded enthusiastically. "When you know right. And October, weddings are just so beautiful with the fall colors. Plus, Kyle managed to get that week off from the hospital, which is practically a miracle with his schedule." My mother beamed at her. "It will be perfect, sweetheart. We'll make it happen no matter what." Later that evening, as family members began to leave, I pulled Amanda aside. "Did you realize your wedding date is just a week before mine and Elaine's?" She blinked at me with wide eyes. "Oh, I completely forgot your exact date. Is that going to be a problem?" Her apparent surprise seemed genuine, and I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. "It might be complicated for family members who have to travel for both weddings so close together. And Mom and Dad will be busy with your wedding right before ours." Amanda waved her hand dismissively. "People who care will make it work. And Mom and Dad are super organized, they can handle 2 weddings. Don't worry so much, Mason." I tried to accept her explanation, but something felt off about the situation. The next day, I called my best friend Trevor to vent my concerns. "Dude, that timing can't be a coincidence," Trevor said flatly after I explained the situation. "You booked your date over a year in advance. Amanda gets engaged after dating this guy for what? 4 months. And suddenly has to have her wedding the week before yours. That's some calculated stuff right there." Maybe, I admitted. But what would be the point? Why would she want her wedding so close to mine? "Think about it," Trevor said. "Your sister has always been the center of attention. Your wedding was going to be her worst nightmare, a whole day where she isn't the most important person in the room. This way, she gets her moment first and probably overshadows yours in the process." His words hit uncomfortably close to the truth, but I still hesitated to attribute such deliberate malice to my sister. That seems extreme even for Amanda. "Just watch what happens next," Trevor warned. "I bet your parents start making your wedding planning more difficult now that they have precious Amanda's event to focus on." That night, Elaine and I had our first serious argument about my family. After listening to me defend Amanda's intentions, Elaine finally lost patience. "Mason, I love you, but you're in denial," she said, arms crossed tightly. "Your family has been treating you as second best our entire relationship. I've bitten my tongue because they're your family, but this wedding date thing is a deliberate attempt to overshadow our day, and you're letting them do it." Her words stung because I knew there was truth in them. I had spent a lifetime making excuses for my family's behavior, finding ways to rationalize the favoritism so I didn't have to face the painful reality that my parents simply cared more about Amanda than me. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice rising in frustration. "Cut them off. Not invite them to the wedding." "I want you to stand up for yourself," Elaine replied, her voice softening. "For us. This is our wedding, Mason. We deserve to have our day be special, and not an afterthought to your sisters." I knew she was right, but years of conditioning made the thought of confrontation with my family terrifying. Still, as I went to sleep that night, I resolved to be more assertive about protecting our wedding plans. Little did I know how severely that resolve would be tested in the coming days. The call from my mother came on a Tuesday evening in late May. Elaine was working late, so I was alone in our apartment reviewing some coding projects when my phone lit up with my mother's name. "Mason, dear," she began in the overly sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "I need to discuss something important about the wedding dates." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What about them?" Well, your father and I have been thinking, she said carefully. It might be best if you and Elaine could adjust your date. Having two family weddings so close together is becoming quite complicated. I sat up straighter, my hand tightening around the phone. Mom, we booked our venue over a year ago. We can't just adjust the date. We'd lose our deposit, and there's no guarantee we could get another date this year. I understand it's inconvenient, she continued, as if I'd merely complained about having to reschedule a dinner reservation. But Amanda has always dreamed of an October wedding, and Kyle's hospital schedule is so restrictive, they really had limited options. So did we, I replied, trying to keep my voice level. That's why we booked so far in advance. Amanda knew our wedding date when she set hers. My mother's voice cooled noticeably. Mason, you need to understand that Amanda is more emotional about these things. Her wedding day needs to be perfect. Surely you and Elaine are practical enough to be flexible. The implication that our wedding was somehow less important, less deserving of the perfect day, made my blood boil. Our wedding matters too, Mom. We're not changing the date. Well, she said. After a pause, there's something else you should consider. Amanda found the perfect venue, and they only had October 15th available. It took a moment for her words to register. October 15th is my wedding date. Yes, and wouldn't it be wonderful if you could move yours? Then Amanda could have her dream venue. I was speechless with shock. Are you seriously asking me to give up my wedding date so Amanda can have the same date? After we've been planning for over a year? Don't be so dramatic, Mason. I'm just asking you to consider what's best for the family. 2 weddings in 1 month is too much for everyone, especially the out-of-town relatives. Anger surged through me as the pieces fell into place. When exactly did Amanda book this venue that only had October 15th available? My mother hesitated. I'm not sure of the exact date. Was it before or after she knew when my wedding was scheduled? Another pause. I believe it was after, but that's hardly relevant. But it was entirely relevant. Amanda had deliberately chosen to pursue a venue for the same date as my wedding. This wasn't a coincidence or a mistake. It was calculated. I need to go, Mom. My voice was tight with suppressed rage. Mason, don't be difficult about this. Your father and I feel very strongly that the current situation isn't workable. If you can't change your date, perhaps you should consider postponing until next year. I almost laughed at the audacity. Postpone my entire wedding by a year. Are you serious? Well, if you're going to be stubborn about the date you leave us with, a difficult decision, she said coldly. We can't properly support 2 weddings so close together, especially with Amanda's being first. If you won't reschedule your father, and I will have to focus our attention on Amanda's wedding, we might not be able to attend yours. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. My own mother was threatening to skip my wedding if I didn't capitulate to my sister's demands. You're saying you'll choose Amanda's wedding over mine? I asked, wanting absolute clarity about what she was proposing. I'm saying you're forcing us to make an impossible choice, she replied neatly, deflecting responsibility. Amanda needs us for her special day. If you truly care about family, you'll make the sacrifice. After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with texts from Amanda, a stream of crying emojis and accusations about how I was ruining her special time and being selfish by not understanding her needs. I called Sophia, our wedding planner, to ask about the situation with Amanda's venue. Her response confirmed my suspicions. I made some calls, Sophia said. Amanda only approached Lakeside Manor 3 weeks ago, well after she knew your wedding date. And here's the kicker. They had multiple October dates available, including the 22nd and 29th. She specifically requested the 15th, and when they told her it might create family complications, since her brother was getting married that day, she insisted it was the only date that would work. The final piece of the puzzle came when I discovered through a mutual friend that Amanda had originally booked a different venue for October 8th, as she'd announced at her engagement dinner. She had canceled that booking after securing Lakeside Manor for the 15th, our date. The next evening, my parents called a family meeting at their house. Elaine came with me for moral support, though my mother had hinted she should stay home for a family-only discussion. Amanda was there with Kyle, who looked uncomfortable with the entire situation. We need to resolve this wedding date conflict. My father began speaking up for the first time in this drama. Your mother and I feel that the most sensible solution is for Mason and Elaine to postpone their wedding until spring of next year. That's not happening, I said firmly. We booked our date first by nearly a year. We've paid deposits to multiple vendors that we'd lose if we changed the date now. We would help with those costs, my mother offered, as if this were a generous concession. This isn't about money, Elaine said, speaking up, despite the hostile environment. It's about respect. We chose our date carefully. It has meaning for us. We've been planning for over a year. Why should we change everything? Because Amanda decided she wants the same date. Amanda's eyes immediately welled with tears. I can't believe you're being so selfish. Kyle and I are so in love, and this is the only date that works with his schedule. Why are you trying to ruin this for me? Kyle shifted uncomfortably beside her but said nothing to support her claim about his schedule. No one is trying to ruin anything for you, I said, struggling to maintain my composure. You knew our wedding date. You chose to book a venue for the same day anyway. You could have picked any other date. It's not the same venue, Amanda countered, as if this detail somehow justified her actions. That's not the point, I replied. The point is that you deliberately created this conflict, and now Mom and Dad are threatening not to come to my wedding if I don't give in to your demands. My father looked uncomfortable at this direct statement. We never said we wouldn't come. Yes, you did, I said, looking him straight in the eye. Mom specifically said you'd have to focus your attention on Amanda's wedding and might not be able to attend mine. My mother's lips thinned with displeasure at having her words quoted back to her. We're simply trying to find a solution that works for everyone. No, I said, standing up from the table. You're trying to find a solution that works for Amanda at my expense. Like always. Amanda burst into full tears, now sobbing that I was being cruel and unfair. My mother rushed to comfort her, while my father looked on helplessly. Mason, look what you've done. My mother scolded arms around Amanda. You know how sensitive your sister is. In that moment, watching my 32-year-old sister cry manipulative tears, while my parents once again rushed to her defense, something broke inside me. A lifetime of accepting second place, of making excuses, of denying the obvious preferential treatment, suddenly seemed unbearable. We're leaving, I said to Elaine, who immediately stood to join me. Our wedding will be on October 15th as planned. You all can decide whether you want to be there or not. As we walked out, I heard my mother call after me. Don't do something you'll regret. Mason family should come first. The irony of her statement was so profound that I couldn't even respond. In her mind, family comes first only applied when I was the one expected to sacrifice. The drive home from my parents' house was silent, both Elaine and I processing the confrontation we'd just experienced. When we arrived at our apartment, Elaine made us both tea, and we sat at our kitchen table, the reality of the situation settling around us like heavy fog. I can't believe they're actually threatening to skip our wedding, I said, staring into my mug. I mean, I knew they favored Amanda, but this is beyond anything I imagined. Elaine reached across the table to take my hand. I'm so sorry, Mason. No one should have to deal with this kind of manipulation from their own family. What do you want to do? Her question was simple but profound. For perhaps the first time in my life, I was being asked what I wanted regarding my family without pressure or judgment. The weight of that freedom was both terrifying and exhilarating. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to call their bluff. Keep our date and see if they really would miss their own son's wedding. But another part is afraid they'll actually do it, and then I'll have to live with that knowledge forever. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, Elaine said firmly. This is our wedding, and while I want it to be perfect, what matters most is that we're starting our life together, with or without your parents' blessing. Her unwavering support gave me strength. We spent hours discussing our options, weighing the potential outcomes of each choice. By morning, I felt clearer about my path forward, though no less pained by the necessity of making such a choice at all. The next day, I called Trevor and asked him to meet for a drink after work. As my oldest friend, he had witnessed the dynamics of my family for years and could offer perspective untainted by politeness or obligation. They're manipulating you, plain and simple, Trevor said, after I recounted the family meeting. They know exactly which buttons to push, to make you feel guilty, to make you think you're the unreasonable one. Classic gaslighting. But uninviting my own parents from my wedding, that seems extreme. Trevor leaned forward, his expression serious. Look, I've watched your family treat you like an afterthought for 20 years. I was there when they skipped your college graduation dinner to attend Amanda's dance recital. I saw your face when they forgot your 25th birthday but threw Amanda a surprise party for hers a month later. This isn't a one-time thing, Mason. It's a pattern, and it's toxic. His words struck a chord. This wasn't just about a wedding date. It was about a lifetime of being treated as less than, of having my feelings and needs dismissed in favor of Amanda's night. If you give in now. Trevor continued, you're setting the tone for your entire marriage. You're telling them that their manipulation works, that they can control your life by withholding their approval. Is that the precedent you want to set? I knew he was right. If I capitulated now, this pattern would continue indefinitely, potentially affecting not just me but Elaine and any children we might have in the future. After several days of reflection, I made my decision. I called my mother on a Sunday afternoon when I knew both my parents would be home. Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad about the wedding. Can you put me on speaker? Once I knew they were both listening, I continued, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Elaine and I have decided to keep our original wedding date of October 15th. It's important to us, and we've been planning this day for over a year. My mother immediately began to protest, but I continued before she could build up steam. I understand that you feel you need to prioritize Amanda's wedding. That's your choice to make. But I need to be clear about something. If you choose not to attend my wedding because of this, I will have to reevaluate our relationship going forward. Are you threatening us? My mother asked, her voice sharp with indignation. No, I'm setting a boundary. For once in my life, I'm saying that my needs matter too. I'm getting married on October 15th. You and Dad are welcome to attend. Amanda is welcome to attend. But I will not change my wedding plans to accommodate Amanda's last-minute decision to book a venue for the same day. My father's voice came through the speaker, uncharacteristically direct. Son, you're putting us in an impossible position. No, Dad. You and Mom created this position by supporting Amanda's deliberate attempt to conflict with my wedding date. I didn't create this situation, but I am choosing not to be its victim. After a long pause, my mother spoke again, her voice cold. If that's your final decision, then you leave us no choice. We'll be attending Amanda's wedding as she needs our support. I hope someday you'll understand family loyalty. The irony of her statement might have made me laugh if it weren't so painful. I understand family loyalty perfectly, Mom. I just don't think it should only flow in one direction. I'll send you a formal update about our wedding plans soon. After ending the call, I sat in silence for a long time, processing the reality that my parents had actually chosen to skip my wedding in favor of Amanda's deliberately conflicting event. Despite preparing for this outcome, the finality of it left me hollow. Over the next few days, the family schism widened as word spread. Amanda posted vague but pointed messages on social media about selfish people and family betrayal. My mother called various relatives, presenting her version of events that painted me as the unreasonable one, tearing the family apart. Some family members took their side, including my maternal grandparents and several aunts and uncles who had always been charmed by Amanda. But surprisingly, others reached out to offer support. My cousin Jackson called one evening, his usually jovial voice serious. I heard what's happening with the wedding dates, he said. For what it's worth, I think you're right to stand your ground. Amanda has always gotten her way, and Aunt Patricia enables it. Some of us have noticed, even if we never said anything. His support meant more than I could express, a validation that I wasn't crazy or selfish for wanting equal consideration in my own family. Elaine's parents were outraged on our behalf when we explained the situation. Diane immediately offered to step in for traditional mother-of-the-groom moments at the wedding, and Michael assured me that while no one could replace a father, he would be honored to stand beside me on the day. Despite these rallying supports, the emotional toll was significant. I found myself alternating between anger, grief, and doubt. Had I made the right choice? Was I overreacting? Would I regret this stance in years to come? Elaine suggested I speak with a therapist to help process these complex emotions, and I agreed. Dr. Marshall, a calm, thoughtful man in his 50s, helped me recognize the patterns of emotional manipulation that had defined my family relationships for decades. What you're feeling now is the grief of recognition, he explained during one session. You're mourning not just the potential absence of your parents at your wedding, but the loss of the family relationship you always hoped might be possible. There's a special pain in finally accepting that people cannot or will not be what you need them to be. Those words resonated deeply. I was grieving not just for the present conflict, but for a lifetime of unmet needs and unequal love. The wedding date drama was merely the catalyst that forced me to finally acknowledge what I had always known, but tried to deny in my family's hierarchy of importance. I would always come second to Amanda. As the weeks passed, and our wedding plans continued, I sent my parents a formal update via email, informing them that while their invitation remained open, we would be proceeding with alternate arrangements for traditional parent roles in the parent roles, ceremony, and reception. I received no response. The pain was real, but so was the strange sense of liberation that came with finally standing up for myself. For the first time, I wasn't contorting myself to fit into the narrow space of approval my parents offered. I was choosing my own path, prioritizing my relationship with Elaine and our future together above the dysfunctional patterns of my past. As Trevor put it, during a suit-fitting session, sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. You and Elaine are starting your own family now. That's what matters most. With that perspective guiding me, I continued forward into the final months of wedding planning, determined that our day would be perfect with or without my parents' presence. The Monday of our wedding week arrived with a crisp October breeze, and trees ablaze with autumn colors. Elaine and I had taken the entire week off work to handle last-minute details and spend time with friends and family who were arriving from out of town. As I checked items off our final to-do list, my phone rang with an unexpected name on the screen, my father. We hadn't spoken directly since the confrontation 3 months earlier. There had been a few terse text exchanges about practical matters, but nothing resembling a real conversation. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself for another attempt at manipulation. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Mason." My father's voice sounded different, subdued, and perhaps even nervous. "Do you have time to talk?" "I'm pretty busy with wedding preparations," I replied, not ready to make things easy for him. "What do you need?" He cleared his throat. "I was hoping we could meet in person. There are things I need to say that shouldn't be said over the phone." Curiosity overcame my wariness. "I can meet you at the coffee shop near my office at 4. The coffee shop was busy with afternoon customers when I arrived. My father was already there, looking older than I remembered, with new lines around his eyes. He stood when he saw me, an uncharacteristic gesture of respect. "Thank you for coming," he said, as we sat down with our coffees. "I owe you an apology, Mason, a big one." Of all the things I had expected, this wasn't on the list. My father had never been one for emotional conversations or admissions of wrongdoing. "I've been a coward," he continued when I didn't immediately respond. "For years, I've gone along with your mother's favoritism toward Amanda because it was easier than standing up to her. I told myself it wasn't that bad that you were strong and independent and didn't need the same kind of attention Amanda did, but that was just an excuse for failing you as a father." His naked honesty left me momentarily speechless. Part of me wanted to accept this olive branch immediately, while another part remained wary of a potential manipulation tactic. "Why now?" I finally asked. "After everything that's happened, why are you suddenly willing to acknowledge this?" My father looked down at his coffee. "A few things. Amanda's wedding has been postponed. She and Kyle are having relationship problems. The venue story was a fabrication, Mason. She never actually booked Lakeside Manor for your date. She just wanted your mother to pressure you into changing yours." What I was stunned by this revelation, though, perhaps I shouldn't have been. So she deliberately created this entire conflict for nothing. He nodded wearily. When Kyle found out what she had done, he was furious. Apparently, he had no idea she was trying to take your date. He said it showed a side of her he wasn't sure he could accept. They're in couples counseling now, trying to work through it, but the wedding is definitely off for now. I processed this information, a complex mix of vindication and sadness washing over me. "So you're here because Amanda's wedding is canceled. If it were still happening, would you still be choosing hers over mine?" "That's a fair question," he admitted. And honestly, I don't know. But what I do know is that watching this situation unfold has forced me to face some uncomfortable truths about our family dynamics. About my role in allowing the favoritism to continue unchecked. About the damage it's done to you, and to Amanda too, in different ways. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. I brought something for you. It belonged to my father. I opened the box to find an antique pocket watch, its gold case engraved with delicate scrollwork. I recognized it immediately from photographs of my grandfather, who had died before I was born. Dad always said this would go to my firstborn son on his wedding day, my father explained. I want you to have it now as it should be. Whether you want me at your wedding or not, this belongs to you. The gesture touched me deeply, but I wasn't ready to simply forget years of hurt because of one conversation and a family heirloom. What about Mom? Where does she stand in all this? My father sighed. She's struggling. She still feels you're being unreasonable, but with Amanda's wedding postponed, she's running out of excuses. I think she's starting to realize what she's about to miss. She's just too proud to admit it yet. I considered his words carefully. If you want to attend my wedding, you're welcome to. But there are conditions. I need acknowledgement from both you and Mom that what happened was wrong. Not just the wedding date conflict, but the pattern of favoritism throughout my life. And I need a genuine apology, not a sorry you feel that way non-apology. That's more than fair, my father agreed. I can only speak for myself, but I am truly sorry, Mason, for all of it. For every time I failed to stand up for you, for every achievement we didn't properly celebrate, for every time you felt less valued than your sister, you deserved better. His sincerity was palpable, and I felt something shift between us. A first, tentative step toward healing a lifetime of hurt. We talked for nearly 2 hours, delving into painful memories, but also sharing moments of connection that had been rare in our relationship. As we were preparing to leave, my father asked hesitantly, "What about Amanda? Would you consider allowing her to attend as well?" I had been expecting this question. I need to talk to her directly first. If she can acknowledge what she did and genuinely apologize, I'll consider it. But I won't have anyone at my wedding who doesn't respect my relationship with Elaine. My father nodded in understanding. That's more generous than many would be in your position. The next day my mother called. Her apology was less straightforward than my father's, still peppered with qualifiers and attempts to share blame. I may have been overly concerned with Amanda's feelings, was the closest she came to acknowledging the favoritism. But she did express a clear desire to attend the wedding and in her own way tried to make amends by offering to help with any last-minute arrangements. I accepted her partial apology with the private understanding that true healing would take much longer than the few days before my wedding. Rome wasn't built in a day, and decades of family dynamics wouldn't be resolved in one conversation. But it was a start. 2 days before the wedding, as final preparations reached their peak intensity, Amanda texted asking to meet. We arranged to have coffee at the same shop where I'd met with our father. Amanda looked different than I had ever seen her, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. Her confidence dimmed. When she spoke, her voice lacked its usual breezy assurance. I messed up, Mason. Really, really badly. She twisted her napkin in her hands, not meeting my eyes. I was jealous of your wedding, of how happy you and Elaine are, of how together you both seem. Kyle and I, we moved too fast. I pushed for an engagement because it seemed like the next step, not because we were ready. When I saw how excited everyone was about your wedding, I wanted that attention too. Her admission was surprisingly honest. So you deliberately tried to take my wedding date? She nodded miserably. I never actually booked the venue. I just told Mom I had because I knew she would pressure you to change yours. It was childish and cruel, and I'm so sorry. When Kyle found out what I'd done, he was disgusted. He said he didn't recognize the person who would do something so manipulative. He's right. I don't like that person either. Her regret seemed genuine. Her usual defenses, stripped away by the consequences of her actions. I felt an unexpected surge of compassion for my sister, who had been as shaped by our parents' dysfunctional dynamics as I had been, albeit in very different ways. I understand if you don't want me at your wedding, she continued. I wouldn't want me there either, but I needed to apologize face to face. What I did was unforgivable. It's not unforgivable, I said after a moment. It was wrong, and it hurt me deeply. But if you're genuinely sorry and committed to changing this dynamic between us, then maybe we can find a way forward. Amanda looked up, hope dawning in her eyes. Really? You'd give me another chance? On conditions, I said firmly. If you come to the wedding, there can be no drama, no attempting to center attention on yourself, no complaints about any aspect of the day. This is about celebrating Elaine and me, period. I understand, she said quickly. I promise I'll be on my best behavior. The best, most supportive sister ever. You won't even know I'm there. I almost smiled at her characteristic hyperbole. Some things never changed. We'll see. I need to discuss this with Elaine first. It's her day too, and she gets equal say in who attends. Elaine, ever compassionate, agreed that Amanda should be allowed to attend if she truly seemed remorseful. Family is complicated, she said wisely. And while what she did was terrible, holding on to anger won't make our wedding day any better. If you think she's sincere, then I support giving her this chance. With these fragile reconciliations in place, we entered the final countdown to our wedding day. The rehearsal dinner, hosted by Elaine's parents at a charming restaurant near the vineyard, was a slightly tense affair at first. My mother was overly polite, my father quietly supportive, and Amanda conspicuously subdued. But as the evening progressed and wine flowed, some of the tension dissolved. By the time dessert was served, my mother was actually engaged in genuine conversation with Elaine's parents, finding common ground in their shared love of gardening. Amanda had made friends with one of Elaine's cousins, their heads bent together in conversation that for once didn't center on Amanda's achievements. As I watched my complicated, flawed family attempting to bridge the chasms that had nearly kept them from this moment, I felt a mix of emotions. There was lingering hurt, certainly, and wariness about whether these changes would last beyond the wedding weekend. But there was also a tentative hope that perhaps in standing firm on my own worth, I had created space for a healthier family dynamic to begin taking root. When I caught Elaine's eye across the room, her smile told me everything I needed to know. Whatever happened with my family, she and I were solid. We were creating our own family now, one built on mutual respect, genuine support, and equal value. That foundation would carry us forward regardless of the complicated relationships that had shaped our past. October 15th dawned with the kind of perfect autumn weather that wedding planners dream about, crisp and sunny, with vibrant foliage creating a natural backdrop of red and gold. From my room at the small inn near the vineyard, I could see the morning light illuminating the rolling hills, covered with grapevines, their leaves turned to flame by the season. Trevor arrived early, bringing coffee and his calming presence. "Ready for the big day?" he asked, handing me a cup. "More ready than I ever thought possible," I replied honestly. After the emotional turbulence of the past months, the clarity I felt about marrying Elaine was the one constant that had never wavered. As we got dressed in our suits, Trevor kept the mood light with stories from our college days and terrible jokes that made me groan and laugh, despite my nervousness. When I fumbled with my tie, hands slightly shaking with anticipation, he stepped in to help without comment, the simple gesture of friendship steadying me. "Your parents are already here," Trevor mentioned casually as he adjusted my boutonniere. "Your dad was helping the ushers set up chairs when I arrived." The fact that my father was not only attending but actively helping surprised and touched me. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it represented an effort I wasn't accustomed to receiving from him. A knock at the door revealed my father, looking distinguished in a charcoal suit I hadn't seen before. Trevor discreetly excused himself, giving us a moment alone. "You look sharp, son," my father said, uncharacteristic emotion, making his voice slightly rough. He held out a small wrapped package. "I wanted to give you this before the ceremony." Inside was my grandfather's pocket watch, now cleaned and polished, attached to a new chain. "I had it serviced," my father explained. "It keeps perfect time now. I thought you might want to carry it today." "Thank you," I said, genuinely moved by the gesture. As I slipped the watch into my vest pocket, my father reached out and did something he hadn't done since I was a child, straightening my tie with a gentle tug. "I'm proud of you, Mason," he said quietly. "Not just for today, but for the man you've become, often without the support you deserved from me. I hope you know that." The simple words, so long desired, filled a space inside me I hadn't realized was still waiting to be healed. That means a lot, Dad. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 in the afternoon, time to catch the golden hour light across the vineyard. As the time approached, I took my place under the flower-covered arch with Trevor beside me and watched as our guests filled the rows of white chairs on the lawn. My mother sat in the front row wearing a conservative blue dress and a slightly anxious expression. Amanda was several rows back, deliberately keeping a low profile as promised. Elaine's large extended family filled much of the left side, their genuine excitement creating a buzz of happy anticipation. The string quartet began playing, and the wedding party processed down the aisle. Then the music changed to the piece Elaine had chosen, and everyone stood to welcome the bride. The moment Elaine appeared on her father's arm, everything else faded away. She was radiant in a simple gown of ivory silk that caught the late afternoon light, her dark hair swept up, with a few tendrils framing her face. Her smile when our eyes met was so full of love and certainty that my throat tightened with emotion. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of heightened awareness. I remember the warmth of Elaine's hands in mine, the perfect blue of the October sky behind her, the scent of autumn and flowers mingling in the air. We had written our own vows, and when I spoke mine, promising to build a life of equal partnership and unwavering support, I saw my father glance meaningfully at my mother. After the celebratory recessional, as guests moved toward the cocktail hour on the vineyard patio, Elaine and I took a moment alone, stealing a few minutes in the small gazebo behind the main building. "We did it," she said, her eyes bright with happiness. "How are you feeling about your family being here?" "Better than I expected," I admitted. "It's not perfect, and we have a long way to go, but it feels like a start. Thank you for encouraging me to give them this chance." She touched my face gently. "Everyone deserves the opportunity to grow, including them. But I'm still keeping an eye on your sister during the reception." Her mock-stern expression made me laugh, releasing the last of my tension. The reception was everything we had hoped for, intimate, yet joyful, with long tables set among the vines and strings of lights, creating a canopy of stars above us. Sophia had outdone herself with the details, from the burgundy and navy color scheme to the individual vintage bottles holding autumn flowers at each place setting. Trevor's best man speech was the perfect blend of humor and heart, recounting our friendship without a single embarrassing story that would make Elaine cringe. Elaine's father welcomed me to the family with such genuine warmth that I had to blink back unexpected tears. The surprise of the evening came during the open toast portion of the dinner, when Amanda hesitantly approached the microphone. I felt Elaine tense beside me, but my sister's face held none of her usual need to be the center of attention. "I had a whole speech prepared," Amanda began, "but standing here now, I realize that the only thing that matters is the truth. Mason, my little brother, I haven't always been the sister you deserved." Her voice wavered slightly, but she continued. "Watching you with Elaine today has shown me what real partnership looks like, what real love looks like. I'm learning from your example, and I'm so grateful that you allowed me to be here to witness your happiness after I nearly ruined it with my selfishness." A murmur ran through the guests who weren't familiar with our recent family drama, but Amanda didn't seem to notice. "Elaine, thank you for loving my brother the way he deserves to be loved, for seeing all the wonderful qualities that make him special. I promise to be a better sister and a supportive sister-in-law going forward." As she returned to her seat, I caught her eye and nodded my appreciation for her uncharacteristically selfless words. It was a small moment, but it felt significant, a tiny seed of potential change in our relationship. The night continued with dancing under the stars, Elaine and I sharing our first dance to the song that had been playing the night we met. My mother even approached us on the dance floor, asking somewhat stiffly if I would dance with her. As we moved awkwardly to the music, she said, "Your wedding is beautiful, Mason. Everything is just perfect." Coming from my mother, this simple acknowledgement, without comparison to Amanda's theoretical wedding, was progress indeed. "Thank you for being here, Mom," I replied. "It means a lot to both of us." "I'm trying," she said quietly. "I may not always get it right, but I am trying." It wasn't a full recognition of the past favoritism, not yet, but it was an acknowledgement that things needed to change, and that was more than I had ever received before. The following morning, Elaine and I departed for our honeymoon in New Zealand, leaving behind the vineyard and the complicated family dynamics to focus solely on our new beginning together. For 2 glorious weeks, we hiked mountains, explored caves, and began our married life in a place where no one knew our history or expected us to be anything other than what we were, a newly married couple, deeply in love. When we returned home 3 months later, settling into married life brought new rhythms and new boundaries with my family. I had coffee with my father every other week, building a relationship that, while still tentative, was more honest than anything we had shared before. My mother tried in her own way, though old habits sometimes emerged in her comments or assumptions. The difference now was that I felt secure enough to gently point out these moments rather than silently accepting them. Amanda surprised us all by committing to therapy, working through the entitlement and insecurity that had driven much of her behavior. Her relationship with Kyle ultimately ended, but she seemed healthier for the breakup, focusing on self-improvement rather than immediately seeking another relationship to define her worth. On Christmas Eve, as Elaine and I hosted our first holiday gathering in our apartment, I looked around at our mixed assembly, my complicated family, alongside Elaine's warm friends, interspersed among relatives, creating a new kind of support network that transcended the limitations of my past. "You look happy," Elaine whispered, sliding her arm around my waist as we watched the gathering from our kitchen doorway. "I am happy," I replied, realizing the simple truth of the statement. Not because everything is perfect with my family, but because I finally understand that my worth isn't determined by their ability to see it. "You helped me learn that." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "We built something good here, Mason. Something that's ours." As the evening continued, I reflected on the journey of the past year, from the pain of feeling secondary in my own family to the strength of creating boundaries that allowed for healthier relationships. Standing up for myself had been terrifying, but it had created the possibility of genuine change, not just for me, but for my entire family. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its complications. Old patterns don't disappear overnight, and new boundaries require constant maintenance. But for the first time, I faced that future with confidence, rather than dread, secure in the knowledge that I had created a foundation of mutual respect for my new family, breaking the cycle that had defined my childhood. Some would call it a happy ending, but I preferred to think of it as a better beginning one, built on the courage to demand equality and the wisdom to know that true family, whether born or chosen, should lift you up rather than tear you down. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? Drop a comment below, sharing your experience or how you handled similar situations. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more of my stories, and share with someone who might need to know they're not alone in these complicated family dynamics. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes standing your ground is the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for those who need to grow.